Welcome to the Leadership Table, where we bring powerful voices and bold leadership to the forefront. I'm your host, Dr. Kevin Hairston, and today's guest is a cultural strategic educator and longtime community activist who is reshaping the minds and movements of our city. Mr. Kwesi Kambon has been a consistent voice for truth, Black consciousness, and grassroots empowerment in Columbus, as well as a respected educator within our school district. He's a respected leader who educates, organizes, and empowers. Mr. Kwesi, thank you for being here today on the Leadership Table.
Thank you, Kevin. It's just an honor to be here. And I need to share with you, coming in the studio, I had a struggle as I was driving. And let me tell you what the struggle was. The struggle was Kevin's asking me to talk about leadership. Why me? How do I get to be here? Because to be honest, I don't think of myself in that way. And Kevin, I just reminded myself, even as I was driving here, a promise that I made to God years ago. And it was simply this, and it's the core message that I have to share with your listeners. I told God years ago I would walk through the open door. Even if I didn't understand what the door was, even if I didn't think I was qualified, even if I didn't know anything about it, I said, God, if you will open a door up for me, and how I know God did it is because it's not because of my doing. It's not because anything I did, or it was something that just opened up. And when you called and said, come and talk about leadership, I'm thinking, God, you're opening up this door. I'm not qualified, but I will go. If you open up this door, I will walk through it. And I'll just end this with this is, you don't know, I got another call a couple of weeks ago, and it also amazed me because in Columbus, there was a program called Who's Who in Black Columbus. And I've been there before, and I know a lot of the people, but I got a call this year, 2 weeks ago, saying, Kwesi, in the fall, we want you to be in Who's Who in Black Columbus. And I'm saying, I'm not qualified. Why are you calling me? And then they said, we have a special category that we're calling Living Legends. Now, Kevin, I dropped on the floor when he said that. I said, no, wait a minute. This is just too much. You're saying you want to have me come in this category called Living Legends. I don't think of myself in that way, but Kevin, I said, well, God, if you've opened up this door, I will walk through it. I will be there. And so it's in that mindset I'm with you today.
But you know what? And I appreciate you, even in your humility in terms of just sharing with us what you just shared. I think, to me, that's a quality within itself that displays a level of leadership. But when I look back, and me and you've had countless number of conversations, but when I look at your resume in terms of how long you worked with the Columbus School District, and I can remember on one occasion, me and you were at an event that was related to the school district, and one of the newest school board members I had a good friendship with, and I remember introducing her to you, and I said, this is a gentleman that you need to put in your contacts. What's giving you the passion that you have after working for the district? Most people would have walked away and they'd be playing golf somewhere, they'd be planting flowers, they would be doing whatever that it is that they do, but you remained an advocate for this city. What inspired you to do that?
Okay, I need to give you a little background of just who I am and how I got to this point. So I grew up in Columbus in Windsor Terrace with 5 kids in our family, no dad, and coming through Columbus City schools. And the thing that just impacted me very early on, Kevin, I was blessed to have some amazing Black men, teachers and principals who just took an interest in me. And to this day, I still remember Ed Willis. I still remember Jack Gibbs. I still remember the attention that they gave this this little Kwesi. And so I remember at East High School, I saw this movie, and perhaps you've seen it. It's called From Montgomery to Memphis, where it talks about the whole civil rights movement. And again, at that point, I was living in Columbus in my own little world. I had never seen the kind of pictures that I saw on that movie screen where they were sicking dogs on people and police were hitting people. And I sat in that movie theater. Well, actually, it wasn't a movie theater. It was East High School where I saw it. And I started crying, Kevin. I was 17 years old. I said, I can't believe that this is happening, that people who look like me. And at East High School in that auditorium, and I was 17. I'm 72 now. But I remember when I was 17, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to try to do something that helps my people. And it was an inner just conviction, a prayer, but I said, I don't know what it is. And so one of the things I immediately did, because again, I said I was this poor kid from Windsor Terrace going through, the Columbus City schools, but because I had so much encouragement from our teachers and leaders, I was a pretty good student, and to the degree that they didn't tell me how many colleges to apply for. So I applied to 10 because I just thought, and I got in all 10. I got into Cornell. I got into Northwestern. I got into Notre Dame. And I chose Northwestern because they gave me the most money. But right before I went to Northwestern, I said, I want to do something that will help me remember, what I am to do. And so I said, I'm going to change my name to an African name. Now, Kevin, let me tell you, it wasn't popular then. It may not be popular now, but I've been known as Kwesi Kambon since I was 17. It was a name that I looked in a book, and what it said is Kwesi means one born on Sunday, but it also means conquering strength of the people, that the people have strength. And I wanted to remind myself. So right before I went up to Northwestern, and I don't know how I did it or what, somehow I saved up enough money. And when I got in Chicago, I found a lawyer. And I said, listen, I want to legally change my name to this name. And I paid the lawyer and they did it. And so for me, I just had this desire at an early age to feel like I'm here to serve. One, because I saw how many people served me, and I just have lived that my whole life.
When you think about your journey, I mean, because you mentioned being brought up in Windsor Terrace. Yeah. For those who may not know, it's a neighborhood in Columbus where the poverty line may be perhaps a little bit below poverty. Yes. It's been reshaped over the years. Mm-hmm. But when we hear the name Windsor Terrace, we tend to think of, hey, that's a neighborhood where, there may be some challenges that come with it, economic challenges and et cetera. But being a student who came out of that environment, and you said I had some other siblings, a mother who was raising us, fatherless home, and here you are part of Columbus City Schools, and you make it all the way to Northwestern University, which is a school that's known for its academics. At least at one point in time, it was known more for its academics than it was its sports programs. Right. And I think within the last 10 to maybe 20 years, their sports has kind of increased. But for that type of student to make it out of that environment, let me ask you this question. Do you think there are educators and there are community advocates such as yourself who have attached themselves to the city school district presently that gives students currently that same opportunity that you have?
There are some, and I'll just say there are some. Certainly there. And the reason why I just stay connected is this strong memory of the people who helped me. So I don't say there are no folks. Yeah, they're and then some of they're black and whites. I mean, I had some white teachers and principals who helped me. So there are some, but certainly not enough as I would like to have. And so that's what keeps me still engaged in the game.
If you were going to give any advice to school district leadership, what advice would you give them to encourage a student like yourself to excel the way that you did?
Well, and I do currently still talk to school district leadership, from the superintendent, board members, and other folks. And so, if there's a single bit of advice I would give them all, is to have high expectations for kids. And again, my own situation, coming from my background, and to be able to, when I left, because of the support I received from educators and community, I could really go to any college really in America. I just, but my school folks, they didn't look at my situation. They saw this potential. And so the key thing that I would just say to educational leaders now is, no matter what the child's circumstance, have high expectations. If you believe they can do anything, then in time they may come to have that same belief.
Let me ask you this: when you look at because sometimes at the leadership table we talk about the disparity between younger generation and older generation in terms of leadership, and when you look at today's younger generation and those leaders, I mean, do you have faith in them? I mean, do you have confidence that they can turn the corner, or is it disappointing when you look at the landscape?
Well, I have some confidence, but I do know it's a learning game that everybody is in process. And I've worked for 6 superintendents. I've seen dozens and dozens of board members, and my issue is, with all the superintendents, all board members, there were some good things and there were some bad things, and so I just think, for me, what I look for is people who are willing to learn, and people who can continue to make progress, but being open to new ideas.
Do you think, in terms of like building coalitions and even in terms of the faith community getting involved, do you think there's an alliance there in terms of, when it comes to social justice, maybe perhaps we've tempered off in terms of some of the things that we should be doing? Or do you find where today's leadership, especially when we look at our city and we look across our state and even nationally, they give us the confidence in terms of being able to make those necessary changes?
Well, it's certainly different from when I grew up. And I just say, even when I came into Columbus City Schools, I started in the communications department. And then one superintendent made me his personal assistant for minority affairs, for instance. So I was his representative to the Black community. But because I had this sense about serving, I felt it was on me to go out and connect with the Black churches. It was on me to get the Urban League. And so for my position within the administration, I made sure that I was out in the community, that I was listening, and then I would go back to the schools and make sure. So what I see is, I don't see as much dialogue as it was when I was there, but I will tell you that I personally made it my responsibility to go and to facilitate that dialogue. And so I don't, see as much of that communication going on that occurred when I was around.
And again, me and you have talked about this plenty of times, and I think someone will ask the question. I remember, not too long ago, one of the school board members, perhaps maybe perhaps a couple of the school board members, they caught wind of a conversation that some of us as clergy had, and the question was, do you have confidence in the school board? And at that moment in time, really evaluating some decisions and some behaviors, we had to be honest and say we didn't have that confidence.
Yes.
Understanding that things evolve and sometimes there's different reasons why people do different things. But when you look at the landscape today, not just in terms of the school district, but you've had relationships that go all the way to city council. You've had relationships that go inside of the mayor's office. You've had relationships that go inside of other elected officials and community organizers. How confident are you at where our city is going?
Well, I think I'd like us to kind of be more intentional about how we serve those who need our support. But Kevin, one of my issues that I think kind of that may have got people off base is to me, and this is for Black folks and white folks too, that sometimes I see it's a game of people getting money, getting status, and I've seen Black folks getting money, position, and comfortable, to be honest. And so I don't see this kind of sense of urgency about helping those who need support for people who are in positions to say that they should be advocating for that. So the kind of, and I don't know, the kind of, looking at what people, money and status and all of that, somehow I think has taken people astray.
Right. Well, one of the things I always applaud you on too is that your advocacy not only for our educational system but also our community as well. But when I look at social media, I see almost every other day you and your wife out in the parks, and you guys have a great love for the outdoors. Where did that come from?
Well, it actually came from a challenge, Kevin. Several years ago, when we had the COVID thing and you couldn't go to the gym, you couldn't go any place. So we started going out to the parks. And what happened is I started going out to these places that were not in my neighborhood, but not that far. But I saw all of these spaces that I never knew about. And at first I got mad at myself. I said, I was born and raised here in Columbus. Why didn't I know about this place? Why? And the other thing that got me is when we would go out, most of the times the people who were there didn't look like us. We were very few and far between to see, Black folks out there. So I started going all out to these places and just being amazed. And at one point, my wife said, "Okay, not only are we going to go, we're going to volunteer at the park." So we, at Ennis Woods, we are on the bucket brigade. So every month we go out with buckets and we water the plants. So it wasn't that I just wanted to get something from the park. I wanted to give back. And so, but then, Kevin, to be honest, as I started to look around the terrain, as I always do, I look for us. I look for us who's out enjoying the parks, but actually who's getting employed by the parks. And I didn't see a lot of us either way. And so then I got on the board of the Friends of Metro Parks. This is a nonprofit that raises money for the Metro Parks. And just recently, they just voted me to be vice president of the Friends of the Metro Park. I'm the only Black board member they've ever had. And a year ago, I was actually doing some consulting with, the Metro Parks to try to increase, diversity. And so that's kind of been my lens now is how can I, one, educate people of color? Because sometimes we don't know. And the reason why I put so much on Facebook about my wife and I being out is I want to educate people. This is all there. And people say, well, Kwesi, it's not in my neighborhood. But I said, Eastern ain't in your neighborhood either, but you go. But the other thing, Kevin, is I find out, at this time, I've got to do some things in my life for self-care and stress release. And for me, getting outdoors in nature and seeing the world that God created. I mean, so seeing the plants and the animals and all of that, it helps me release stress. So selfishly, I do it as a stress reliever.
Well, I applaud both you and your wife, man, for your commitment, not only to the educational system, but also to advocating. Because one of the things I've heard you say when you're along this process, and you said, "Hey, our tax dollars pay for that, so we should be using it."
Absolutely.
And that always reminded me that we are invested.
Yeah.
And so even though we're not utilizing it as much as we should, we are invested, at least financially. And so I think it's a great thing, again, when we talk about the issue of self-care, that we're finding where it's not just about going to a park because it's close to my house,
Yeah.
but it's going to a park, or it's going all year round because of what it perhaps can do for me.
It's funny you say all year round because the Metro Parks has a thing called winter hikes. And so the dead of winter, no matter how cold it is, they have a group of hikes in the park, and I go out there with my wife, and to be honest, Kevin, ain't many of us out there. And it can be 50, 100 folks out walking, and two black people. But I put a picture up on Facebook of me out on a winter hike, and my brother called me and said, "Will you take that picture off Facebook? People know I'm your brother, and they think you gone crazy. You know the black people don't go hiking, and you're embarrassing the whole family putting that picture out there." And part of the reason, again, that I do things like that is I want people of color to know that this is yours, that you paid for it, and that you can get benefits from it year round.
Well, I tell you what, you will put have a smile on your face to know that early this morning I'm in the park, and I did my daily 3 mile walk, because I do it not just because it's healthy, but I do it also because of self-care. Mr. Kambon, I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to be with us, to talk about leadership and to talk about those things that are passionate. Mr. Kambon challenges us to lead from a place of rootedness and awareness. Thank you again for joining us here on the Leadership Table, and thank you for all of those who are tuning in right now. We want to encourage you, find a park near your home and be able to walk in it. And if you can get involved in your local school district as a tutor, or even perhaps donating some goods or some supplies for educators and for students, we want to encourage you to do that. Again, I'm Dr. Kevin Hairston. Thank you for joining the Leadership Table. God bless you. And until the next time, remember to always keep the faith as we keep in touch.
Foxland Media. Think big.